The conclusion of Landman Season 2 is explained, and it's the best the show has ever been. Undoubtedly, Landman Season 2 has had its share of issues, but it has all culminated in a climax that wonderfully captures all of this show's strong points. There are many things you may say about Landman. I think I've previously mentioned the majority of them in my coverage of Season 2. It's strange. Sometimes it is misguided. It doesn't adhere to any of the standard guidelines about pacing and organization. It has an almost unparalleled equality of focus, giving half-billion-dollar discussions between gangsters and oil executives equal weight with sporadic, pointless subplots about nursing home patients visiting the casino. Despite this, the season's conclusion is almost flawless, mostly due to these factors. Tragedy and Flies, the 10th episode, captures the heart of this program in about 70 minutes. You can't claim that there were a lot of surprises either. In the comments section of my coverage of the penultimate episode, a number of people predicted that Tommy would collaborate with Cooper in business, and I was right about what I expected to happen with Aninsley's college dorm issues and the fallout from Cooper attacking Ariana's attacker. However, that doesn't make it any less pleasurable to watch it all unfold, particularly in a show that prioritizes feelings over all else. Everything just works, even the strange things that don't. In any case, let's go in reverse order of significance since there is a lot to dissect. Finally, Aninsley is maturing and leaving the nest. And all it took was one training session at the college. Aninsley is taken aback by how demanding the schedule is and realizes she needs Pagan, the physiotherapist, who is also quite skilled. Given that Aninsley is somewhat of an outsider in the group, Pagan must perceive something in her weak ankles that softens their bedside attitude. When a group of high school lads show over to taunt them, Aninsley humiliates the kids and dismisses them because of Pagan's softness. Since Aninsley had to finally stand on her own 2 feet, this had to happen and was always going to happen in essentially the same way that it does here. She needed to develop her ability to make concessions. It's this. She even informs Angela that she's going to try living in the dorms again, which causes her to have another meltdown about her kid flying the coop. However, that is the least of Angela's issues. Tommy is no longer employed at MTech's, in case you forgot. A guy of his stature might, of course, return to being a landman or take a similar role at another large corporation, but he isn't sure he has the stamina for that life anymore. In addition, he wants to demonstrate that he still has one more home run in him. In between putting out a couple other flames at the conclusion, he manages to put this home run together. But I'll gather everything here. In summary, Tommy will capitalize on Cooper's success, as our comments were correct. Even though MTech's took over the leases, there is some ambiguity because Cammy was unaware of that small agreement. Although it is difficult to persuade respectable businessmen of this, Tommy is fortunate to know a few individuals who are not. Galeno, come in. Tommy has no trouble persuading Galeno that MTech's is a sinking ship under Cammy's leadership. Nate is aware of that. He is called to Fort Worth by Cammy to take over as interim president, but he resigns instead, claiming that Monty never meant for the business to survive him. The ship must be sold since it is sinking. Until Charlie finds gas in the field by some miracle, Galeno's investment will never yield a profit. Tommy is making a guaranteed offer. Cooper's wells are now yielding. He can recover at 70% and divide all future revenues 50-50 if Galeno follows the conditions of the first agreement with him. He and Tommy are starting a business, but it's reasonable to assume there will be some obstacles when the gangster Galeno's flicker truly materializes. Tommy wants some credibility to support his new business endeavor. He gives Galeno instructions to write a check to a business named CTT Oil Exploration and Cattle, ostensibly because he hadn't finished forming an LLC yet and needed to make sure it was so foolish that no one else would accept it in the interim. Tommy instructs Cooper to create a group chat with almost all of the main characters and call them to Cooper's dig site after picking up Cooper and Ariana. Tommy establishes the framework of his new oil company after arriving. Tommy will serve as senior vice president, and Cooper as president. Dale is in charge of exploration, Rebecca is the COO and chief lawyer, and Nate is the treasurer. Ariana will be the office manager, and TL and Cheyenne will comically supervise the digging. In case you were wondering, Cooper, Tommy, Thomas, is what CTT stands for. Wow! The consequences of Cooper hitting the man who was abusing Ariana outside the patch are, of course, another significant subplot in Landman Season 2, Episode 10. The fact that the man passed away in the hospital adds a little complexity to this issue, and the optics are not good as a major pipeline supplier. Consequently, the sheriffs are attempting to punish Cooper. As was to be expected, Cooper's repeated assaults on the man after he ceased to pose a threat don't reflect well on him. He will require an attorney. Fortunately, Ariana is familiar with Rebecca. All Rebecca needed was a reason to switch back to her usual shark mode after weeks of fluttering her lashes at Charlie. She barges into the interview room and makes it a point to threaten to investigate every shooting involving an officer in the department and file civil lawsuits on behalf of the families of all the victims. By their own reasoning, law enforcement will be responsible for sufficient damages to bankrupt the whole department if Cooper is charged with using excessive force. Tommy is involved as well. When he finally shows up for a meeting with the assembled brass, he basically scorches the earth after calling Walt right away to assist fix it. In the wonderful state of Texas, is any jury going to side with the man attempting to force himself on a young woman over the man who valiantly defended his wife? It turns out that the man died in the hospital from a heart attack, not necessarily from the beating. Cooper is exonerated of any misconduct, and the matter is dismissed. Landman Season 2 has a joyful finish in almost every way. However, this ending feels more like a Season 3 premiere than anything else because there will still be a lot of issues to resolve in the future. Why not at this point? When Aninsley Norris, Michelle Randolph, who lives just across the Trinity River from her parents, experiences Division I cheerleading for the first time with her new squad at TCU, she begins to understand the gravity of her own profession. I should mention that Aninsley is no longer in high school, Toto. Exercises at this level of collegiate sports are no joke, as the young co-ed soon discovers. Aninsley encounters her brief roommate, who coincidentally majored in sports medicine and was initially introduced in the previous episode, while on the field. This time, there are no constant expectations, but when the two have a chance to support one another on the field, they surprisingly discover common ground. Perhaps the best housemates are weird pairings. Cooper Norris, Jacob Laughlin, and Ariana Medina, Paulina Chavez, return to Midland on a new day to evaluate the psychological and physical harm caused by the horrific events of the previous evening. The younger Norris faces legal repercussions for his actions defending his fiancée after Cooper urges Ariana to denounce the rowdy bar patron who attempted to attack her in the Patch Cafe's back alley. It appears that every graphic detail of Ariana's attack and Cooper's hands for weapons reaction was caught by the surveillance cameras outside the bar. If you multiply the legal justification of one punch by 15, you may have ventured into criminal ground, son. Ariana and Cooper did not anticipate this response from the local government. Ariana pulls in assistance from an unexpected source now that Cooper is under scrutiny. Rebecca Falconia, Kayla Wallace, surprised that she would be Ariana's first call, physically and figuratively goes into overdrive to defend Cooper, but not before warning Tommy. Rebecca's persistent drive as an attorney is where the character shines, even though we have seen far more of her vulnerable side this season with her new love interest, Charlie. Rebecca, wearing 4-inch heels and in stealth mode, storms into the interrogation room to discredit the cops for questioning her new client without his lawyer present. The tenacious litigator quickly makes the lawmen re-evaluate their life decisions as she painstakingly lays out her defense strategy, which has the potential to expose every secret in their own closets. The plot places characters on opposing sides of the question of who the law considers to be the victim in this situation as the deputies and detectives struggle with whether or not to charge Cooper. Tommy is back in Fort Worth and is still looking for a benefactor to fund the drilling of his son's Lucky Strike wells, all the while keeping Cooper's legal issues in the back of his mind. Having run out of choices, he ends up in Danny Morell's office, pun intended. Yes, that Danny Morell, Tommy's aforementioned annoyance. Tommy hides his arrogance and contempt for the drug lord who is now experimenting with oil, who almost killed him in Season 1, after realizing that big business may occasionally make weird bedfellows. The former oil executive who is now a Landman outlines his financial requirements, explains why it makes sense to support a Norris family business, and discusses the potential costs to him as an angel investor of Cammy's offshore gas project. In a profession that frequently focuses more on crisis management, family therapy, grief counseling, and hoarding cats than on obtaining leases and mineral rights for oil drilling exploration, Tommy Norris' dismissal brings him back to his origins and motivations for working in the field. Returning to Midland completes the Landman's day. Tommy stops by to criticize the police chief and share his thoughts on Cooper's questioning and victims' rights in relation to Ariana's assault while traveling to see his son and see how his future daughter-in-law is doing. Now that Cooper and Ariana are with him, he gathers his father, Rebecca, TL, Sam Elliott, and their diverse oil team in the middle of the Permian Basin under the setting Texas sun. Tommy outlines his intentions for their joint future there, behind the steel and stone of a pump jack in West Texas. The most memorable aspect of Landman's second season is still Billy Bob Thornton's portrayal of Tommy Norris, which is captivating and subtle. The seasoned actor's portrayal, which captures the intricacy of his character's effort to keep his mind from blowing up with the minute-by-minute decisions he must make in any given 24-hour period, continues to highlight his unique acting style and depth as a performer. His popping antacids like tic-tacs may highlight the character's skillful fusion of roughness and tenderness. Thornton's skillful portrayal of Tommy's emotional journey throughout this season and the grizzled oil man's will to survive to see another sunrise, whether he takes a moment to appreciate it or not, is enhanced by his unique blend of dry humor and drama. And in spite of the many challenges he encounters on a daily basis, such as family legal issues, needy relatives, skepticism from people he serves, or encounters with the devil, Thornton unquestionably steals the show, serving as a reminder of the value of perseverance and the pursuit of our own envious day in the sun, regardless of the length of the convoluted and oil-slick journey. We will have the opportunity to observe how the new CTT exploration and cattle compares to its rivals next fall, as Landman's mid-season renewal for a third year is currently underway. You'll understand if you simply watch. Watch all 10 episodes of the second season of the major oil drama until then. Really, did they reserve the best for last? If you have spent any time on the patch this season, you are aware that the path to the most comprehensive episode in the series, the Landman Season 2 finale, has been fairly convoluted. Inspired by the podcast Boomtown, Taylor Sheridan and Christian Wallace's gritty, extravagant oil drama concludes its sophomore season with a wrap-up that returns folks to their familiar road and suggests fresh starts. The main character of the neo-Western drama series, played by Billy Bob Thornton, is an experienced oil guy who struggles every day with the hectic insanity that motivates his job, affects his family, and highlights the hard realities of living in the huge oil industry. As president of the fictional M-Tex oil firm, Tommy Norris, Thornton, has faced numerous personal and professional challenges over a large portion of the season. The title character of the show took over after his old employer, Monty Miller, had a heart attack at the end of the first season. Tommy is abruptly sacked by his new boss, Cammy Miller, Demi Moore, in the run-up to this week's finale. Cammy Miller's opposing viewpoints on how to manage a billion-dollar oil corporation diverge greatly on the banks of the Louisiana Bayou at the launch of a new rig. If "go big or go home" was a reason to fire someone, Cammy just rewrote the rules for perfect execution. Cammy, a former socialite from Texas who had no concept how the sausage was made in her late husband's industry, has quickly learned how to lead the pack in a cutthroat industry. She works fast to locate Tommy's replacement.